For Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat. Before we begin, can I please request you all to remember Marhum Ismail Walji, father of Barkat Uncle Walji and Zera Bai Danji, with a Surah Fatiha, Al-Fatiha. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. My dear scholars, elders, sisters and brothers in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Indeed, it is a great pleasure that we have amongst us here this evening Dr. Sibtain Panjwani. And I'm sure most of you know Dr. Saab. For those that are of the younger generation, I will do a brief introduction before moving on to the main program. Dr. Sibtain Panjwani arrived in the UK in 1968 to pursue his education. He is a dental surgeon, having obtained a BDS from the University of Manchester and an MA from King's College, University of London. Dr. Sibtain Panjwani has a special interest in medical law and ethics. Dr. Sibtain Panjwani has been an active member of our community. In 1984, he was elected the president for the Shia Ithna Ashari community of West Essex. In 1991, he served as a vice president of the Council of European Jamaats, and for 5 years was elected Executive Councillor of the World Federation. In 1996, he was appointed as the Secretary General of the World Federation by Marhum Mullah Asghar Ali M.M. Jafar. Dr. Sibtain Panjwani worked closely with Marhum Mullah Asghar in matters relating to both the Khoja Shia Ithna Ashari community and Shia and Muslim community worldwide. After Mullah Asghar passed away, Dr. Sibtain Panjwani continued to serve the community as Secretary General. More recently, Dr. Sibtain Panjwani has addressed various issues and delivered many papers on subjects such as the concept of the soul in animal-human experimentation with reference to Islam, a brief introduction to the Islamic perspective on abortion, and more recently, an introduction to bioethics with reference to the Islamic perspective, the role of shukr and concept of cooperation in the family and community, and challenges in education as part of the Awakening Project. Dr. Sibtain Panjwani regularly delivers lectures on various other topics in our communities worldwide in English and Gujarati. This evening's program will be split into two. The first part of the program will be a talk in English titled Spiritual Awakening, in which Dr. Sibtain Panjwani will talk about the challenges that our community faces in our day-to-day life and what our role is in these times. Why are our institutions so important to us, and how we should protect them to protect ourselves from such problems arising. We will have a question and answer session after the talk and niyaz, and the second part of the program will begin with a seminar titled Creating Frameworks from the Legacy of Ahlul Bayt. Without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Sibtain Panjwani to come forward and begin this evening's program with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I am thankful to the Executive Committee of Leicester Jamaat, and in particular Sajjad Bojani, who very kindly invited me to address you regarding the work that I have embarked upon since, 3 years now, on the future of our community. The talk will be from me of 45 minutes. It's mainly slide presentation, followed by question and answer, clarifications, any contributions that you can make. I want to begin with that particular slide. Now, it's a slide presentation, so I think it's important for you to turn towards there because it's important. It's wholly slide presentation, so. Now, this is the first slide. The reason why I have put this plus slide is because there are a couple of things I want you to notice. Look at the word Islamism. See, Ism, although it gives some sort of ideological connotation, but it also gives a derogatory sense to the word that it attaches to. So, for example, Islam as a religion now becomes Islamism as an issue of discussion. And therefore, I want you to understand the vocabulary and the languages that we will be coming across more and more. So that's one thing that you have to bear in mind. The second point that I want to make is that within Islam, there is now a group of Muslims who wishes to have their interpretation as a dominant interpretation. And if that interpretation is not followed by anyone, then they are considered kufr. And this is the concept of takfiri, which is coming into Islam and Muslim Ummah. And of course, it directly affects us because we are Shia Ithna Ashari, and in their ideology, which comes from Ibn Saud and Al-Wahhab, combining those sort of personalities and what they believed in, it comes directly from those type of ideological values, and they consider Shia as kafir. Now, there are a couple of things here. Almost 30 years ago, we used to have these opinions and fatwas which used to say Shia are kafir. But now, all right, 15 years ago, when I was a Secretary General, well, in 1990s, late 1990s, when I was Secretary General, we had to directly deal with the problems of targeted killings in Karachi. This is targeted killings in Karachi of Muslim doctors, lawyers, Muslim professionals. And now, openly, Shias are targeted. So it directly affects our community. What I'm trying to bring forward here is the internal challenge that we are facing as a community within Islam. I've put some statements here, and I would like to, I don't want you to start thinking very rationally here, just intuitively. That means your feelings here. If I were to say religion plays an inferior role in public space, would you all agree? More or less. Religion plays an inferior role in the West here, where we live. Okay? Well, whenever I'm addressing Khoja community, it's always very quiet. You nod if you agree. Would you say, on the whole, religion plays an inferior role in public? I don't want a discussion, but just you get that feeling that is not a dominant role. Yes, okay. We are constantly reminded that religion is only one of the many options in which to view the purpose of our existence. Yeah? Yeah, we have freedom. You know, you have one of the choices, religion. Okay. Do you agree that we live under the framework of education, economics, politics, etc., that uncouples us from religion as a whole? That means religion is not tied to education, tied to politics, and that sort of thing. We live in that sort of an ethos, yes? So basically, we live in a secular age, or more worldly age. All right? Okay, let me go on to the next one. Basically, this particular age, and many of you may disagree with this, but I have come to these 4 characteristics of an age that we are living under as a religious community. It has a reducing role of God or spiritual in our lives. We are less bound by communal and familial structures and more by personal choices. Would you agree with that, for example? Yes? there is emphasis on freedom to develop a social order. Would you agree with that? Okay. God and religion is one option amongst many. In other words, we as a religious people, our soul is oscillating, engaging God and neglecting God. We tend to find that in our lives. We engage with God, and then we neglect, and then we say sorry. Yeah? So basically, that is, in a nutshell, the external concerns and challenges that we face. So we have the internal challenge within Islam, Muslim community, and then we have these such external issues that we have to deal with as a religious community. And then we have this intellectual academic challenge as well. This is a fantastic research that I've come across, and it's just recently published. It's done by Professor Amelie, and what he did was he carried out a bibliographic samples of around 23,872 items over a period of 1949 to 2009. So basically, when he looked at all the academic bibliographic, he found that almost 13.4% of the academic work is Islamophobic. In other words, it has this fear or dislike of all or most of Muslims. And then, of course, there are also Islamophilia, which means they are all respectable to Islam. But the other interesting finding was this 48.4%, which he has labeled as Islamoromia. What it means is that this particular work looks at very romantically at the Roman period, at Greek period, and then the whole edifice of the Western structure, and then they compare it with the Islam and the Islamic civilization, and then they say that the West basically is much more superior to Islam. And this is the type of academic work which is almost 48.4%. So what happens is that this is the other issues that we also have to deal with, because a young man, a young Muslim who goes into Western academia and then he come across academic bibliography of this nature, it nurtures his mind towards something like that. So that's also a challenge. So basically we have three challenges: internal, external, and then also academic. So as a Khoja Shia Ishnashi community, what are we going to do about these challenges that we are facing? So basically as a community, we are a very resourceful community. We are basically a community based on faith. We have a history in Islam of 700 years, and we have a community history of 170 years. Basically, if you look at the Khoja history, we mainly come from Gujarat, migrated to Africa, and then from there to worldwide. But in Gujarat and in Africa, our development was much more isolated. In other words, we didn't come across any values or any notions which challenged us. We developed. But as we came out from Africa into the West, obviously we have to now engage with other religion, with other cultures, and therefore we found that we have now to deal with lots more issues. So basically what happened is we still retained our way of existing. Like we created Imam Baras, and there is a fantastic history of Imam Baras in our community, and they're rightly so. But at the same time, we needed to also understand the challenges that we are going through. And the question I began to ask myself was that, given the challenges out here, are we sufficiently equipped? Are our institution resourced enough to overcome these challenges that I have just described to you? Internal, external, academic, all that sort of thing. So basically that was my work, which I want to share today with you, and I called it Awakening Project. So what I did was I asked myself some questions, research questions. The first question I asked myself, what are our present challenges? Then given the challenges, what should we do as a community to secure our faith and values? In light of our community history, what are the strong, enduring foundations of our community? And then, are our current foundations able to overcome challenges and provide efficient support to further our development? So these were the fundamental questions that I asked myself to carry out research. And what I did was I produced a semi-academic paper, Awakening the Spirit of Inquiry, the Future of the Khoja Shia Ishnashri Muslim Community, a discussion. This was in 2011. I must say that I got very good feedback from the grassroots when I promoted this paper, but unfortunately and regrettably, our community is not a reading community. And it's not a good thing either. If we are not a reading community, we will always remain behind. We will not understand the challenges of our time. When I give all of you a booklet to read, I'm telling you 95% of the books will remain here. Or if you take it home, it will remain in the shelf. It will not be read. And I think that's a drawback for us. Anyway, whatever comments I got from this particular paper was very useful to me to develop things further. What I did was, at the same time, I have got about 9 video links. And all these video links are available, by the way. All of you can view them. Key challenges facing the Khoja Shia Ishnashri Muslim community, challenges to the family in our community, challenges in education, and then creating frameworks for the madrasas, why the institutions of madrasa, member, and family unit need to be reformed within the Khoja community, the role of shukr and the concept of cooperation in the family. All these video links underpin the academic paper, that semi-academic paper that I published. Why this? So I'm here today to really basically engage with the grassroots and share my thoughts and share your contribution so that I could develop this thing further. And the best way to develop it is to change the mindset of our Jamaat leadership and also allow the opportunities of the grassroots to put their point of view across to what I'm talking about. And so that's an opportunity to develop this project together. And eventually, hopefully, we can always talk to the leadership at the end to see if we could move this up the ladder. So that's the why. The primary target group I talked about, I'm basically concentrating on those people who work for the Jamaat, who are in the coal face, in the front face of the Jamaat. What are their problems as volunteers, as president, as secretary, as mukhi, as madrasa teachers, as headmaster? What are the problems? If we pass a resolution here, why can't they carry it out? What are the challenges for them? So that was my primary target group. But there's also a secondary target group, which is like seniors and youth. And I just had a youth forum in Birmingham, so I discussed this with the youngsters. See? And of course, my end goal in the short term, not in the long term, is to create a board in every Jamaat that deals with the member, madrasa, and family unit. And I'll tell you why I have chosen these 3, because I consider these 3 as a foundational, fundamental unit of our community. You weaken them, you weaken the community. You weaken the family unit, you weaken the community. You weaken the madrasa, you weaken the community. You weaken the member, you weaken the community. So, and since 2011, I've done a lot of journeys, by the way. I started with Peterborough way back in March 2012, and then went on to seniors in London, and then started a workshop, Dubai, Toronto, London Hujjat Main Jamaat, Dar es Salaam Jamaat, Birmingham Youth Forum. Yesterday I went to Peterborough. Today Leicester, booked for Wessex, and then started a workshop, and so on and so forth. So what I did first was to find out what are our values. How would I know what our values are? I examined documents, constitutions, reports, paperworks, talking to people. And I came across these were the values that we subscribe. All the community, Khoja community throughout the world, subscribe to these values. We believe in flourishing godly values. We always talk about taqwa from the mimbar, from the madrasa, even in the family, even within ourselves. We say we must have taqwa. So that is our main value, that we must be God conscious. After all, we are Muslims. We submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and therefore this becomes our primary value. But then, of course, there are other values which I picked up from the constitutions, that we want to do things with wisdom as a community. We want to be just and fair. We want to be compassionate and caring. And we want to have integrity. So these are the values that we subscribe to. If I were to ask you, do you think that these values are seen dominantly within the community? What would you say? Sorry? No? Okay. So the next thing I want to, if we don't see this as a dominant value in our community, we don't see that this is there, but it's there. Inshallah, you know that word? Aaj kale aao sumara gare tame. Inshallah, the more Allah hoy, you know that there is a bit of a issue here. But you know, inshallah, the word has got a beautiful meaning, Quranic meaning. But because we are trying to, if we are not very sure, we say inshallah. Really, the niyat is not there. But you see what I mean? I'm saying that we sometimes make it very ritualistic, this sort of thing, and it actually affects our values. So what I thought, well, what should be our mindset, really? If we want to now change and go to those values that we all subscribe to, well, our grandfather and great-grandfather laid their lives for. This community has got a history, by the way, just like the Irani and just like the Iraqi and just like the Lebanese and just like any other Muslim community group. They shed blood for Islam. This community has shed blood for its mother. And so it's got a proud history. And if we subscribe to these values, then we must have a mindset which should go towards that value. So I asked myself, what should be the mindset? I came across this one, that we must begin to instill these values that I just talked about in every child from the time in the mother's womb till present. In other words, the unborn child has a right to appropriate parenting and care. The born child has a right to appropriate parenting and care. The child and youth has a right to appropriate education. Why do I think that this is the mindset we should go for? Why? The reason is, it's very simple. To change you and the generation before you can be very difficult because you are set in your ways. But to change a younger generation would not be difficult. So if we concentrate on the child that is born today and ask ourselves that when a child is born in our community today and he becomes 21, what sort of adult do we want to see in him? And then if we begin to work at these children within 21 years, we will have a very sound community with flourishing values that we all subscribe to. Can you see the point I'm making? No? Yes? Yeah. So, basically we have duties to our future generation. A mother to be is an important character for us. Why? Because a mother is going to change a society. If you instill the right things in the mother, the child will get the right things and the society will change. If we have these duties to our children, believe me, you're 21, 22 years, we can have a different type of a community than we have at the moment. So what is needed is our buy-in, the most important ingredient. You are the people who are going to make this thing work, not me. I am here to talk to you about these things. But if you don't make a khalele out here or out there, I'm not subscribing to a revolution, by the way. I'm subscribing to an awakening within yourself. If you are comfortable the way you are, then we alhamdulillah, we'll get on like this. Our community will be there. What sort of a community will be there, we don't know. But if we want to make the community as a faith-based community, which we all are, then those are the values that we subscribe to, and this is what is needed. Now, I'm not going to go through these challenges because I think it will take a lot more time, but you understand some of the challenges that I've just talked about, yes? Internal, external, academic, yeah? There are many challenges. You can give me so many, but I have just taken those three, and basically one of them, like for example, urgent need for spiritual experiences. Would you agree with that, that we have a need for spiritual experiences? That, you know, we should create an ethos within the family, within the community, within ourselves, of those ideas and ideals within ourselves, so we can engage with God much more so than what we are doing. At least you'll agree to that. We need that. We can't teach this in a blackboard, can we? If you teach akhlaq to a child, that look, behave yourself, is that enough? It would not be enough unless the child goes to a family, to the community, to the ethos which this thing is subscribed to or prescribed to. So given the challenges we face, what should we do as a community to secure our faith and values? That's the question I have to deal with. And what I tried to do was to identify leverage factors. How many of you are in the corporate field? You understand leverage factors? Leverage factors are those factors that you tweak and you get the good effect, maximum effect, with small amount of tweaking. So I was going through the structures of our community to see what are those structures which are so core and so foundational. If we get it right, then we would be able to keep the community much more in the straight and narrow path, if I can put it this way. So that was what I was looking for, and I called it enduring foundational institutions. And what are they? These are institution of family, institution of member, and institution of madrasa. Why did I pick those three? Because in our history, when four families meet together, what do? First of all, we invite for Jamuan, for dinner. That's a good thing in amongst our community. The second thing we do is we meet together on a Thursday and we recite something. Let us have Surah Yasin together. And then, of course, amongst us, whoever is more knowledgeable, we tell him, why don't you teach our children? This I'm talking about, this is our history saying now. When we migrated to Africa, this is what our families used to do. And those four families became 8 families, and then they became a Jamaat. And the first thing they did was that they constructed in Imambara a community of 170 years without an army, without an oil well, without land, without all those resources. How have we survived? How have we survived? We haven't got army to protect us. We haven't got land to cultivate. How have we survived? That's an important question. We have survived because of our faith. Our Imambara became our country. Momentous resolutions were passed in Imambaras. My elders will remember those things. Imambara became our country. Ahlul Bayt became our role models. We did not subscribe to any government. We subscribed to our Ahlul Bayt. This has been our way ever since we became a community. And therefore, these three things, institution of family, institution of member, institution of madrasa, we started those three as the first fundamentals as a community. Why? Because we want to make sure our generation, future generation, become knowledgeable about Islam. Member, so that we can get the good guidance from the member. And the family, because if we don't have the family, if we don't have the right nurturing, then the community will collapse. So we made sure that our family remained intact, that our member guided us, and our madrasa guided the children. So, if I now want to microscope the institution, what would be the first thing I would do? I would identify a working principle upon which I want to change things. Am I right? I should have a working principle. I should know what is my object. And to identify a working, there's a very interesting history here. I want you to listen to this. there was a professor at Harvard University. He was Palestinian, by the way. And he wanted to construct a forum. He wanted to build a forum, educational forum in the Middle East. And he was searching for a working principle on education. He said, I don't believe on an education which gives a degree like 2-1, 1-1, A, B, C, D. Why? Because he says, in the process, we lose a lot of potential in our children. If you don't get the right grades, you are considered an inferior. If you don't get 2-1, you are considered not as good as the other. If you don't get the A grades and the B grades, it has a psychological problem. So I am not interested in that. I want every child in my community to have potential which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given to me. And I want to make sure that those potential come out. So he went to Harvard University to look at philosophers, this one, that one. This is his story. He was addressing Tehran University and all the professors there. And he said, do you know, one day I picked up a book and I found a principle. Now I want you to guess which book would that be. Everyone says that. Everyone says that. But you know, that wasn't the book. He picked up Nahjul Balagha. And this is what he... قِيمَةُ كُلِّ أَمْرٍ مَا يُحْسِنُ. Value of each person lies in the good he does. And the meaning of yuhsin, if you open the Arabic dictionary, these are the meanings you get. Yuhsan has several meanings, and together constitute a worth of a person. That Palestinian, what he was trying to do was to instill a worth in that child so that the child can give an effect to the potential that he has got. He will be a worthy person in a community, a worthy person in a society. A yuhsan means how well the person does. Knowledge and skill dimension is there. How pleasing the person does. It's got an aesthetic dimension. How good this person is to the community from the experience of the community. How much one gives of oneself to others. And how respectful of people and ideas the person is. Now, would you want a child of that worthiness, or would you want a child of 2-1? You would say both. Of course. But the 2-1 is incorporated in that. And so this became the working principle for our community, in my estimation. Why? Because I think every child in our community matters. આપણા કોમનો જે છોકરો હોય એ આપણો છે, મારો ને તારો નહીં, પણ આપણો છે. This is how I see it. So now the next thing is to establish guidelines based on that working principle. How would I want to establish guideline for member, guideline for the family, guideline for the madrasa? I would look at the reports. The way I would like to produce guidelines is because I want to see what the community is suffering from. What are the problems within the community? So the next best thing is to look at the reports. So when I started to base the guidelines for the institution of family, I looked at the reports. Now, this is one of the problems we have is that, you know, a bright guy would come into the community and then we'll do statistics for 1 year. When he departs, the statistics departs with him. So we don't get a trend anywhere in the community. We have patches of statistics, you know, done in 2005, and then not done, and then 2011, not done, and 2013. So you can't pick up a trend. Our community is only how many? How many do you think our community membership is? Guess. Throughout the world, Khoja community, how many? Yeah, you've got a good guess there. I used to say 124,000 only because Marhum Mullah Sahib used to ask me, why 124,000? I used to say, because Paygambara are 124. Reason is that we don't have statistics. If you look at it, hardly 90,000, maybe 100,000, as he says. But then with a community where Malaikul Maut busy hoy, and birth control badare hoy, so you can see that it's diminishing, isn't it? આજે આપણા પપ્પાઓ, father and mother, had 6 or 7 children, whilst we only have 2 or 3, and our future generation will be only 2 or 3. So community of 90,000 will become what in 50, 70, 80 years? A diminishing community. And then of course we marry amongst each other as well. 30,000 families throughout East Africa marry amongst each other. So we have one common gene pool now. Anyway, I don't want to go into that, but there you are. So look at these. 9 leading to divorces in 1 year. For a small community, it's too many. And you know, we have to now think in terms of what's happening to our community. And we have to start to see how we can reduce this sort of thing, how we can help it. But importantly, look at the last 3. There's increase of promiscuity amongst husband and wives. Now, I was shocked. This is a report of a Jamaat, which means that they have got data which are individual real data. I don't mean made-up data. I mean real data. So there is that. And then there is drug and drunkenness leading to abuse and in some cases violence. And then, of course, internet chat, Facebook, mobiles, leading to easy connection with opposite sex, leading to suspicious between spouses, and then the thunderstorm at home. You know, Kajya and Abadu. So, I mean, these are the challenges for us as a community. And then do we have fiqh, which relates to these things, like internet? I mean, we should have a fiqh understanding of how we should behave ourselves in internet and Facebook and mobiles. Don't you think? Well, we haven't even begun to think in those lines yet. Are there any problems? Because there is an echo coming, my ears are going. Is that okay? Right, okay. You can all, yeah, this is better. Oh, I don't know. I turn my face like that, and then the voice goes. But anyway, so can we see, these are the challenges. So when we want to develop a guideline, these are the things that we look at. Let's look at the other thing. Most cases of marital breakdown are in first 5 years of marriage. This is now a report with true data. Increasing burden on divorced women with children to bring up. Increasing number of young divorcees with children remain single for years and face hardship. Now this is beginning in our community. So that's another challenge. Now look at now this is a statistics from a medium Jamaat. But look at our population from below 18 to 25, 34, almost more than 50%. But the one that you want to keep an eye on is 65 plus. At the moment is 8.36%. But within 10 years, 1 in 5 will be a zaif, over 65. That's our demographics now. So now we have to cater for a population which is increasingly becoming old. And we are, or they are, the first generation which is passing through this phase. All those experiences that they go through, we have to learn from them to make sure that we avoid the same sort of difficulties that they are going through. But do we ask them what sort of difficulties they are going through? If I were to say, Ramzan bhai, aaj tumhari kya difficulties hai, you would find it very difficult to relate to me. There are no processes within our community which allows these guys, our elders, to relate their problems. And we should think about this. The other demographic service to pick up is average age in our community is 35, 55% are below 34. Average number of children is 1.7, diminishing. Number of people age 65 is 8.4 at the moment, but 10 years it will be almost 20%. Now, male to female split is nearly equal. But look at the next slide. Not married. 52% male and 29% female between 25 and 34. 18% male and 16% female between 35 and 44. Between 35 and 44, almost equal. We can do something about them, don't you think? No? Now, if we have a will to do it, you know, our grandfather, Purvajo, who Gujarati mein bolu samjho tame bada, with respect, with respect. If I were to say to you, the આપણા પૂર્વજો જ્યારે જોતા હતા કે અહીંયા છોકરો છે ને અહીંયા છોકરી છે, so they used to sort it out amongst themselves and make sure that they get married. We don't do things like that here. But of course at that time the community was small. But we should be doing things like that. Each one of us should be doing it, really. That look, if there is an issue of marriage here, every one of us work towards that. But if we do that collectively, I think our problems can be resolved. But then you see the whole ethos today is my choice comes first. Well, why should I bother? There is president there who can deal with it. Poor president. Look at our skill base. 96% of us speak English. That's very good because we live in a country where it's fantastic. Because then we can engage with our neighbors, we can engage with other citizens of this country. But what I don't like is that 76% speak Gujarati only. It's a diminishing language. I don't mind if you have one language. I don't mind if we stick to English, but let us stick to English in the most proficient way. That means in a most cultural way. That means if I quote a Shakespeare, you should be able to understand that. Well, I'll tell you, 99.9% of us will speak English, who won't understand Tennyson, for example, or Shakespeare. Yeah? But Gujarati is our cultural language. મીઠાશ છે એમાં ભાઈ અને આજે જાય છે. લુહાણા અને પટેલ ગુજરાતી શીખવાડવા માટે કેટલી આજે કોશિશ કરે છે કે એ લોકોના યંગસ્ટર્સ આજે ગુજરાતી બોલે. Why? Because Gujarat has become a powerhouse of India. Today, the most spread out community from India is Gujaratis. It has a history of networking. It's superb. If you go to East Africa, majority of them are Gujaratis. આજે if you want to do business ને તમે પ્લેનમાં વાત કરો કેમ છો તમે ઓલો તને સારો જવાબ આપશે. How are you? It's something else. So learning as many languages is good, but Gujarati language is important. Then 25% are educated to degree level. 39.9% have a profession. Look at that, 30.8% have no qualification. For a community as as small as this one, and Allah upon at least we are one of the richest community. In 1972, when we arrived in this country, what did we have? Today, just the community asset is worth 25 million. So if you divide it by 10,000, which is the number given without any statistic, without any surveys, 10,000 se apne kho jao. If you divide 25 million divide by 10,000, look at the asset backing that we have. Now add into that pot all our personal assets and then divide it by 90,000. Look, there are 45 Jamaats in Gujarat with land, with buildings. In East Africa, in Mombasa, in Dar es Salaam, huge assets. Canada, Sweden, France, and still 30.8% have no qualification. And then 1/3, I'm told, of our community at large is poor. That means that they are not sufficiently in that range where they can see food coming in tomorrow. Again, unemployment, look at the statistics. Of these, 62% are aged between 25 and 54. 14.6% of male between 25 and 62 are not employed. Anyway, so this is how we then begin to produce guidelines. I don't want to go into that because this requires another session with targeted groups so that we could go through the guidelines. But I want to go into the next thing, which is institution of Mimba. Now this is a very important institution, but I want to start with this statistic. Look at this. This is a September 2013 recent survey. It's about a program in Ramadan. We had about 24 specific comments on majalis and lectures. Guess what were the other comments on in Ramadan? Guess. Food. ચણાનું શાક ઓછું હતું, દાળનું શાક વધારે હતું, ગોસનું શાક કાચું હતું. But what about majalis? Yes, of course, in a way it's good, but too very happy, but 22 showed concern. Now this is good, because we are awakening now. For me, it is good. This is good reading. But look at the type. The lectures were not bad, we just had speakers that we were familiar with. We're very poor this year and needs to be careful of his content. We need lectures like Sheikh, this. Now they are naming them, by the way. The lecture booking was very ad hoc, so now blaming the administrator here, which is good. Need an inspiring and interesting speaker to wake us up spiritually. I feel lectures were well off the mark, same as last year, very poor. But if we speak up, then the administrator will take notice. But our community has become so passive now. You give them Muharram majalises, you give them Ramzan programs, and that's about it. They're happy with that. If Jamaat doesn't care about anything else, you're not going to voice your concerns at all, are you? But the moment Ramzan program or Muharram program are not right, you will go strike. And if you are not 30 days, what do you call it, 30 days, iftar, then you have even a bigger problem from the ladies. Okay. But one guy wrote this, and I thought that was very good. We must aim to take the program to the next level. Very switched off young people are now. Anything very standard day in, day out just will not engage. Enable greater appreciation. The youths need to enable them to have greater appreciation of Islam. We must move away from the usual traditional programs. We must have rather an active engagement with our Lord. Okay, so I subscribe to that, because this is a feeling from youth, which generally is how this is, by the way, from the youth. They want to go into the next level. They want to engage. They don't want to just come and just listen or see Dua Kumail and don't engage with God. They want to engage with God. They want to open their mindset up to Islam. Today, the battle is not the battle in Iraq or Iran or Syria. Today, the battle is the battle of ideas. If you capture the mindset of a young man, you have captured him. And if Islam doesn't provide the solution for the challenges in the mindset of a young people, where will he go? He will go somewhere else. And if you provide a mindset like those interpretations in Islam, where will these guys go? We have to now talk about pristine Islam and engage with values that are universal in Islam, so that we can engage with the public out there that, look, Muslims are not as bad as they are made out to be. Islam is a peaceful religion. So basically, these are the issues that I've come across in my all those travel, yeah? And I've done a considerable travel, by the way, now. Mimbar has become a place of oratory rather than critical thinking. How many of you will agree with that? Informalization has led to easy access of information, and Mimbar must be relevant to the current trends, open to uncomfortable conversations. Because if you have some concerns, Mimbar must provide guidance. Issues of charging for lectures and giving appropriate hadiyah. We must give appropriate hadiyah to our scholars. Can't expect them to live with, we can live well, they don't live well. And they are expected to guide us. Developing guidelines on how members should be used and kind of lectures given. And the issue of banning is also an important issue. For a small community, we should not think about banning. Remove that. If we have a proper guideline, why should we ban a lecturer? If he follows the guideline, he would not come to banning them. બાજી આપણા હાથમાં છે. સમજો છો ગુજરાતીયા? બાજી આપણા હાથમાં છે. It means control is in our hand. Produce a guideline. No one can then talk nonsense from there. So some of the guidelines I have developed is an alim is to, we have developed is to be invited first and foremost on his or her willingness to serve the community rather than profit from it. How many of you will agree with that? I think it's. An alim is to be invited on the basis of his knowledge, critical thinking, and research skills, and therefore we must also inquire what kind of research she is engaged in and her qualifications, so that they can guide the community. Question and answer session should be encouraged with the alim to nurture transparency. I think you will agree with that. Jamaat to set certain standards for alim when they give a majalis. I think this is important. At times we give alims an easy ride, but rather we should put pressure on them to share their knowledge and actively contribute for the well-being of the community, not just the 30, 40 minutes of majalis. Any attempt at politics with the Khoja community in order to ban a person or secure some kind of political support for a worldview should be prohibited, and if this does occur, the alim should undergo some form of scrutiny then. Because the control is in our hand. Khoja students and scholars, now this is important. Khoja students and scholars should be given the first opportunity for lectures in order to train and nurture them. Who is going to look after our own Muballighins? Our Khoja scholars, do you think they will get an opportunity in an Irani or Iraqi or Lebanese Miyambaras? Where are they going to go then? They are the first port of call for us, because at the end of the day, these guys, our scholars, understand us and will guide us. But if we don't lift them, if we don't support them, where are they going to go? Anyway, these are developing guidelines. This is not set in stones, by the way. This can change any minute. If you give me a good, powerful argument, I'll change it. The institution of madrasa. Look, this is my analysis on madrasa. Historically, we began to realize that school will not provide sufficient moral education. Yeah? Yes? It won't. So we established a few hours a week religious instruction classes and named it a madrasa. Madrasa is more than that, by the way. It's an institution. It has a history in Islam. We genuinely thought that this is enough to preserve Iman for our children. You know those few hours a week? One Saturday, one Sunday. We thought that's enough. And we are comfortable for our children to receiving a fully resourced secular education as a priority. That means if he doesn't do his homework at home, we'll be very angry with him. But if, for example, you have to go out over the weekend and the son says, Dad, my madrasa teacher told me to read the Quran. Next week. But secular education no homework nahi kare to footpati amar se. Quran, you see, now psychologically, the child is going to a secular education with full resource. Comes to madrasa on Sunday, 25, 30 people in a small room. Voluntary teacher, bichari heran thati. And most of us just use madrasa as what? Babysitting. And then we say, okay, આ છોકરાઓ છે અમે પાછા આપણે આપણા દિલને વાત કરીએ છીએ કે અમે બહુ સારું કામ કરી રહ્યા છીએ બાય ધ વે અમે મદ્રસામાં છોકરાને લઈ ગયા છીએ રિયલી અને જ્યારે છોકરો ઘરે આવે ત્યારે આપણે એને કહીએ કુરાનની યાદ નહીં કરતો સો યુ સી વી આર કમ્ફર્ટેબલ વી ગીવ પ્રાયોરિટી ટુ સેક્યુલર એજ્યુકેશન madrasa is the most important priority today, particularly today. So what is the effect now? Well-resourced secular school, less important but adequately covered madrasa. This is where we are now functioning like that. Well-resourced secular school, some Islamic subject taught here and there in the school. This is in some parts of the world. Well-resourced secular school, evening madrasa with mediocre resource. Well-resourced secular school, weekend madrasa with voluntary resource. And to head it all, we send our child to university. And in university, he comes across so many ideologies. Marxism, communism, capitalism, whatever ism that you want to put across. And then on top of it, Islamic interpretations. Bicharo more lene jato hoy. Ani rakhe. An olo avine ne Arabic ma badu kai jay. Apro chokro pela to gabrai jay ke Arabic mane to nathi avadtu. એટલે ઈ તો શાંતિથી પાછો મોર લઈ ખિસ્સામાં નાખીને નીકળી જાય. We want to produce a child who can stand up and say, this is the Islam I believe in. So we have to work towards that. Why do we have to be defensive? So on top of it, the academic challenge that I talked to you in the third slide, yeah? Islamophobic academic stance and all that. So So this is what we see. They have skillfully developed different type of behavior, our child. We call dual life disposition, right? We also find that some of them perform outward duties like prayers, fasting, and attending mosques at one level, but also retain the trappings of Western thoughts and culture sense on the other hand. Now, if there's a good cultural sense from the West or from the society that we are, I think we should embrace it. I'm not talking about those things. I'm talking about those things that what we call dignity of the moment. Dignity, human dignity is based on religiosity in the past. That is now being removed. It is now based on what is called dignity of the moment. If I find that this is good for me, I will do it. This is called dignity of the moment. Yeah? We would not reflect back to our religiosity which provided us with that dignity which comes from Islam. Can you see the differentiation that I'm making here? So this is what we want to see. We want to produce a young man who is well versed in Islam while at the same time providing him or her with education and skills to succeed in this modern world. For this, we need to provide correct tarbiyah. Tarbiyah means moral education, so that he can be neighborly to his neighbor, so that he can engage in a courtesy with neighbors, so that he doesn't develop into violent and extreme type of a personality. We want him to live as a contributing member of a greater society that we have here, for example, in the UK or in Canada, in America, in Tanzania, in Kenya. Follow the laws and behave as a good citizen will behave. So the core issue before us is how to resolve the challenges related to modernity and development while at the same time maintaining our culture and madhabi integrity. This is our challenge. And I don't want to go into all that, but I want to come into pragmatic conclusion. I think lack of religiosity in most of the schools our children attend is a fact, by the way. Okay? Provision of well-resourced madrasa institutions which embody various dimensions of Islamic education to make up the shortfall that exists in the secular school. So we have to do that. I'm developing this open community university, and I'll go through it in a second. The reason is that because we have 2 to 3 hours of madrasa education, we now need to develop a concept of open community university. And Jamaat makes madrasa #1 priority and provide full, have you seen that underlining? Full financial resources to make it effective. If it means providing well-calibered teachers, which will cost us money, if we don't do that, our children will suffer, our mindset will remain as it is just now. So let us make sure that that becomes our priority. The generation that we are going to breed is the one that is going to serve us well and serve the society well. This is a open community university idea and a concept that I'm developing. I feel that madrasa becomes the base of that. So it's a developing concept, and then you see all this, you see? Family. We have premarital sessions within the community. We have pregnant moms coming in so that we can nurture their minds and the child-to-be mind. Young mothers, young and recently married couples. So we provide education. I don't mean Islamic education. I'm talking about education with tarbiyah. The base of it is the Islamic base. Can you see what I mean? The moral base has to be Islam. But you can even talk about secular subjects. Okay? And then, of course, children, religious education, secular education, special coaching, language classes. And for youths, induction courses, skills training, modular learning, career planning, just before they go to university so they can have an induction classes. And then, of course, adult. We must reskill them. Adult religious classes, keep it fit and healthy living and all that sort of thing. If we develop a concept of this nature, a child born in our community, up till the time when the person dies, he can access education. And if he can access education, that principle, working principle, to make a person worthy. We work towards that. Yes, I know. Somebody's going to sleep already. And so I should cut it short now? But then you won't have the Where is the management? Can I carry on with this? Because I just need to finish it, because otherwise you will have only halfway. Why don't you just look at this very quickly, okay? So these are the institution of madrasa and the solutions. I'm not going to go through all that. Last bit is create a dynamic structure. We have a vertical hierarchy like this in a big Jamaat, yes? President and the management committee on the top. And we have a horizontal hierarchy like that for a small Jamaat. But what is most important is that these three units, family unit, member, and madrasa, are interconnected. And the reason why I say that is because of this. Issues such as marriage, drug, education, skill, health can be dealt by all three as directed by the community or executive. So all these three institutions, if they sing from the same song sheet, they can deal with the drug issue, they can deal with marriage issue, they can deal with all those issues that relate to the community. And what is necessary is a dynamic and effective structure. So we have a representation from madrasa, family unit, and member to form a joint board within the executive of Jamaat. Now, this is the first step. But if we take it, at least we will know the concerns of the community. And what happens is that we develop a convergence to deliver a working principle, yuhsan. Expertise coming from family, member, and madrasa, and then the resources coming from the executive committee. So if they provide the resources to the board, they can deliver the program that the management committee sets. So we should all have our buy-in to offer a chance to lead godly lives, values that every talent in the community is promoted. We have hope, optimism, and progress. We develop our own frameworks so that we can make successful leaders, confident individuals, responsible members, effective contributors. So lastly, this is what, if you don't mind, Mr. Chairman, I don't think I've taken the chair time. I asked you for 45 minutes, yeah? I think I'm about right, yeah? Okay. These are the three areas. If I can have your comments, it would be wonderful. So, anything, whatever your feelings are, please, just contribute. It will be taken, even if it's a criticism, it's okay, because it will be taken as a constructive one, and I will change it. Mr. Chairman, is it okay?
I think you will also remember that we were being taught a poet like Pratham Ali Bija Hassan, Hussain Trija Jan. And that was for nursery level. So if each and every Jamaat embarks on a project of a nursery school based on religious education, so the belief in the oneness of Allah and the Ahlul Bayt will be instilled in the hearts of those children from the beginning, and then after completing nursery, Like when after nursery it comes to primary school, secondary, college, university, our syllabus should be based on this level. For example, generally many parents think that my son or my daughter knows how to recite Quran. That is enough for me. That is what I want. The rest, I'm not interested. That is wrong. So what I say is that apart from giving religious education to other children, we have to bear in mind that we have youths here who are studying in college, in university. They need special classes, and we need special teachers for them to give them religious knowledge in that level. So if we can work out a program like that, and we find people, committed people, well, to pay somebody and come and teach, it's another question. But committed, that once you are committed, you will come and teach. You will not say, no, I'm busy today. Well, once in a while it happens. But if we are all serious, parents are serious, children are serious, community leaders are serious, and we have commitment, then only we can progress, earning the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Muhammad wa Muhammad salawat.
Yeah, I don't have much to add. I think I agree with you. Yeah. Anyone?
I think we'll take one more question and then break up for Niyaz. That's okay.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum.
I have one point and another question. I think you mentioned about the the Khoja scholars. What statistics do you have on that? Like, because I've been to Iran and been in the seminary for a few months, I've seen the people out there, and yes, there are many different denominations, but to me, what concerns me is that, yes, we have these popular speakers and these other scholars, and I don't see that within our community at the moment we have the caliber to match that. So in that, do we have statistics of how many people from our communities have gone and are studying in the seminaries or even studying in academic institutes in religious studies over here? The second point being, coming back to the point Mullah Roshan mentioned about the people in universities and colleges. One of the things I have noticed personally, being in university and being in academia itself, is that yes, these people face challenges, these people face different ideologies, but the problem we have comes back not as such to the communities, it comes back to our leaders, as I feel it, because leaders should understand that we are subjected to different ideologies and we need someone within the education circle who can counter that. And that should not come from someone who's an expert in that field, as religious field or anything. It needs someone who's specifically an expert in that. For example, you're talking about drugs. I did pharmaceuticals. So in terms of that, I can relate to that. In the same aspect, we need someone to come into our communities who can relate to these different ideologies. Because at the end of the day, a youth gets more and more confused when they go to universities, when they're bombarded with these different ideologies. And the more confused they get, the more away they are from our communities. So I don't know, how do you feel about that?
Right, okay, I'll take the second part first. And I agree with you that we need expertise in every field. But to get to the expertise, we have to put processes in place. And to put processes in place, we have to understand first what the challenges are and what guidelines within which we have to work. So for example, if we identify drug as an issue, then the primary question that we would, as a community we would be facing is that how are we going to educate the masses about the worst nature of drugs? So member, madrasa and family can work together on that issue. Then of course we come to specifics. In specifics we have to rely upon expertise, and therefore the community will have to resource that expert to deal with these situations. So obviously this will all come, these are the first initial steps, understanding the challenges first, developing the guidelines, putting the processes in place. This is how I have dealt with the step 3. Coming to the question about Khoja alims, let me be very frank with you. Today, for example, if we do not provide platform, however little the numbers are, how are we going to increase them if we don't provide those platforms? Even in the face of, for example, better scholars around. What I'm trying to say to you is that it is not beyond our wit to carve out a position for these scholars to play within the community so that they could also, we can also promote them in our community. Of course, I'm not saying that we should never have, but I think primary concern should be that we should have a principle that our own scholars should be encouraged to become mobile again. Our own scholars encouraged to become expert in some Islamic sciences. Now, when it comes to how many expertise we have, believe me, I have seen some very good expertise within our Khoja community, but they are not liberally advertised here. That's the unfortunate part. Yeah, that's the unfortunate part. If we do advertise that we have those capable scholars, maybe their oratory is not fantastic. But we don't go by oratory, we go by content, of course. But these scholars have to be supported. If the community doesn't have a program of support to these scholars, then of course we suffer. Yeah. Mr. Chairman? Yeah.
Sorry, can I just add another point?
Yeah.
Just in comparison to what you're presenting today, I don't know if you know Sheikh Shuja Mirza in Iran. He's from Canada originally, and he's has a similar concept but towards the scholaristic. And what you mentioned just now regarding the experts we have in our community, what he perceives is that the experts should go back to the communities that they come from specifically, rather than cross-linking and cross-networking. They go because they understand the problems of that community. Is that something you feel
yes.
is appropriate?
Absolutely. And not only that, the community must be ready to receive them and have processes in place for them to promote themselves up. But if we don't have a supporting program for them, you can see that these guys, where will they go? You know, they have taken their own initiatives. They went and studied, and yet the community don't have a program to support afterwards.
Thank you very much. I think we'll continue in about half an hour after Niyaz for the seminar, if that's okay.
The next seminar? But may I? Yeah, okay.
From Muhammad Wali Muhammad Salawat.